I'm Kevin. I'm an author here in Tokyo. I've written a new book called The Way. Here it is. This is a proof copy. I'm running a Kickstarter on it. It's a tale about samurai spirit, a tale of love and vengeance. I'm going to read the next dozen pages or so. Here we go. The older guest turned to her father with a beaming, playful smile. "Ah, magnificent, sensei." Masao waved his comment aside. "You embarrass me with that term. I'm a simple country man." "Yuki is wonderful. What a rider. And such control, such a crashing calm, power and stillness for one so young." Masao shook his head to conceal his bursting pride. She was so much like him. "My daughter is a show-off and should not have taken the third shot. She could have easily fallen." "Ah, but she struck the target 3 times. That is youth. What is youth if it's not lived with bravado, eh?" The old samurai bubbled with praise. His excitement at the display coursed through him as if he had done the ride himself. Shizuko entered, followed by the kitchen maid carrying a tray with fresh-cut melons and sweet bean cakes. "The wildness of youth should be shaped and cultured, especially in a woman. But as you can see, my husband wants her to have as violent a life as he did." "Of course." The guest knew he would have to appease the lady of the house. Her temperament was widely known. "A life with the dangers of the great Masao would not suit a woman of refinement. In fact, it frightens most men. But one cannot argue that honor and beauty must stand hand in hand." Shizuko's voice tensed slightly with her Taira attitude. "Honor and beauty do stand together, but I fail to see where a sword and a rampaging horse enter into the picture of a woman of honored refinement." Masao cut in. "It's no use, Gotanda-san. My wife does not appreciate my choice of instructions for Yuki." A sigh as weary as the pelting summer heat escaped Masao's lips. "Life is all about balance and nurturing. Tell me, Gotanda-san, have you brought what I requested?" "Yes, of course. It is light and fast and slightly shorter." "Will you excuse us, Shizuko, and tend to Yuki while I finalize things with Gotanda-san?" Masao spoke to his wife with the politeness and respect that showed her position, if perhaps not his love for her. "Of course. Perhaps his son would like to meet the mad country girl on the horse." She turned to the tall, handsome Gotanda Yosuke, who had accompanied his father on the trip to the revered Lord Masao's country estate. The young boy, knowing his place, merely bowed. It pleased Yoshiko to see that some of Masao's acquaintances had manners. She led him from the veranda toward the stable. The older Gotanda presented the roll of fabric on the table, slid it across, and bowed deeply, offering it to Masao. "I hope it will please you. Because of your specific design instructions, I see now it is obviously for your daughter. I assume she is as good with a sword as with a horse?" Masao could not hide his pride and nodded modestly. "It would be my honor if you would accept it freely as a token of such a fine display of Yabusame, and for the deep gratitude I have owed you for so many years." No, Gotanda-san. I won't have it. You must accept." "No." The gift of such a fine katana was immense. Masao shook his head. No. Your craftsmanship, Gotanda-san, is but a shadow of your achievements, my lord. I am but a country monk. You are all we should strive to be." "Ha! My wife would beg to differ there." "Please, Masao-sensei, there are few things one can do for someone who has achieved such a claim." Without wanting to offend the old sword maker, Masao accepted the sword. It was a rarity for a craftsman to give up such a work, and it would be a travesty of honor to refuse it. "Well, then we should have tea, my old friend." Yuki unhitched her kimono, allowing it to drape down to its full length, and adjusted the line and folds briefly, then turned her attention to her pounding love. She spoiled the big horse with a vigorous rub-down. The horse was still excited as she was. Osamu was brushing down Kazuo's other flank. The stallion's sweat was honest and permeated their hands as they vigorously brushed his dense muscles. Osamu was still bubbling, laughing, and making fun of the third shot when Shizuko and the teacher and the teenager appeared. They stood at the door. Osamu, knowing his place, fell silent. "Hurry along, Yuki. No doubt your father wants to speak with you about the Yabusame. I shall have your calligraphy work ready shortly." "Yes, mother." She didn't bother to look at her mother and remained focused on brushing the glistening black coat of her love. She knew the older woman would not appreciate the value of the third shot. "This is Gotanda-san's son, Yosuke. I shall leave you two to get acquainted. Please be at the house shortly." "Yes, mother." The older woman, dressed in her colorful kimono, turned and shuffled in the particular way that courtesans do toward the big house. The pretentious walk annoyed Yuki intensely, as if it suggested a frailty, not beauty. Yuki, like her father, believed that beauty should be a strength, not a weakness or affectation. She continued to rub down the big animal. She did not come around to greet the gangly guest. Yuki had little time for weak men. Perhaps that was the only point of agreement between her mother and her father. The tall boy came around the back of Kazuo. He was confident around horses. He watched the petite figure. She was much smaller than he had expected. Her power, when thundering down the path, was dwarfed when she stood beside the huge horse. "You are very good at Yabusame." "Thank you." She was not sure about him. He was probably weak, a courtier's boy. She stayed with Kazuo and did not look at the boy. She was not frail, he thought. She massaged the rippled chest of the horse with a vigorous brush. She was adept at taking care of her animal as she was at riding. Her frame was small, but it looked coiled tight. There was a power in her, a force, perhaps similar to her father's. But she did lack some politeness. She could at least greet me, he thought. "I would like to ride like that someday. Is that all you want?" "Well, probably, and to be like your father." She tore her attention from Kazuo and looked up at him. He was tall and handsome. He hadn't filled out with muscle, but there was a gleam in his eyes, a confusion. Was it playful, arrogant, earnest? She couldn't tell. Yuki didn't have much interaction with young men, so thought it best to return to brushing down Kazuo. "Why, are you good at bonsai?" Again, he thought her tone was aggressive, but her face said exactly the opposite. Her face was round and small. Her eyes, like black almonds, were set against a most amazing complexion. Court women were excessively presented, their skin powdered and pale blue with few features. Yuki's skin was vibrant, like the warmth of a night fire. He thought it almost welcoming, almost playful. Exactly the opposite of how she spoke. "Your father is well known for his honor, heroism, and if you don't know about beauty, how can you know about honor? So you don't know my father." "Well, I don't understand." She glared up at him again. She wanted to see his eyes. What was it about his gaze? She was puzzled by the simplicity and truth in his eyes. Perhaps he was stupid. "If your world is consumed by trying to achieve a rank or a goal, you will never know beauty, and therefore never know honor, and never be much of anything." "Oh, so I assume that because of your skill in archery, you achieved that third shot, but as yet have not found the beauty of conversation. Thank you." The young man bowed respectfully, turned, and left. Yuki stared at his back, annoyed at not having been able to outdo the court boy in conversation. Even more frustrating was the fact he was so good looking and he had a kindness in his eyes that baffled her. She glanced over at Osamu, who raised his eyebrow. What did that mean? She returned to grooming Kazuo. The beast suddenly shook his massive frame from nostril to tail. Yuki scowled at the grinning Osamu. Yuki had been absently practicing her calligraphy, eager to find an opportunity to discuss the Yabusame with her father. He had been occupied in conversation with his guests for more than an hour. Her focus drifted between the Yabusame and the boy's eyes. The calligraphy was almost pointless. The brush in her hand moved with the distraction of a chicken. She looked toward the paper sliding door. Conversation had fallen silent in the next room. She heard the faint knocking of wood and assumed her father must be giving a lesson to the court boy. She laid her brush down near the inkwell and rose. Her heart fluttered with the possibility of giving the handsome boy a lesson with the sword as well. Leaving through the sliding door that opened from her room onto the garden, she rounded the veranda and quietly made her way around the house to the front area where she could see them practice. Her mother was nowhere to be seen. The clanging of the cedar practice shinai swords made her bristle with excitement. She peered around the corner at her father and the boy. The boy seemed much taller than he did in the stable. He was almost the same height as her father. They practiced repeated patterns, and the boy was good. He had been well drilled by someone. She could see her father was growing impatient with the repetition, though. Yuki sensed a lesson coming. Masao lowered his practice sword, stepped back, and placed the wooden sword on a near stone water trough. The young Yosuke was confused and stood unsure what to do. He glanced at his own father on the veranda. His father was more focused on his tea, as if having nothing to do with the boy. He is well trained as a basic fighter. You should be proud, Gotanda-san. Pride is as short-lived as a samurai. True. Is that your wish, Yosuke? To be a samurai like your father? He is an excellent swordsman. Yes, sir, but my father will not teach me. He says I have a brain like thick, gooey rice. That's good, Gotanda-san. So, Yosuke, why can the thick, gooey rice not learn? I don't know, Sensei. Of course you do. You try to beat me, but that is not how you shall defeat your opponent. You must fight through him. Yosuke listened intently to the famous samurai, yet understanding did not appear. Masao was impressed with the boy's focus. Through his eyes, in Yabusame, Yuki does not see the target to hit. It looks back at her, and in that way, she's able to strike the target. The third shot was lucky. Wasn't it, Yuki? He whipped around to his left, catching her gazing around the corner. If your mother catches you here, you will become the target. Yes, father. She slinked a few inches back out of sight, but she wouldn't move further. She wanted to see the next moment. She knew when her father would deliver a moment of clarity. Challenge me, Yosuke. But you have no shinai, no weapon. But I have yours. The boy hesitated in front of the renowned samurai. Do it, boy! Yelled his father. Yosuke attacked Masao. Masao's arm flashed up and deflected the blow and stepped to one side. Again, the young boy attacked and was parried by 2 fingers, his forceful blow glancing harmlessly wide. A third time he slashed in a combination of strokes, each time missing his mark. He pulled back and bowed. Why can I not hit you? Why? Because you keep telling me what you're going to do. Your greatest weapon is your opponent's eyes. His eyes will tell you what he intends. There lies your victory. Nowhere else. Victory is in the understanding of your opponent's eyes. Yes, sir. Remember it. There is no greater lesson. That is what your father has brought you here to learn. He's very wise. Masao turned back to the veranda. Isn't that right, Gotanda? Thank you, Sensei. The old man chuckled at having been found out. He's good, and he obeys his father. Unlike my daughter. Right, Yuki? She knew she had pushed her luck far enough and scampered back along the corridor. Her wooden geta sandals clickety-clack, clickety-clack, and skidded as she whipped back into the room. She picked up her calligraphy brush and began another character. Within moments, her mother slid open the door to her room. Suspicion was etched on the scowl of her mother's face. Shizuko surveyed the paltry amount of work that Yuki had achieved. "Your father's guests are leaving. You must come and bid them farewell." "Yes, mother." Yuki was eager to drop the brush and have one more look at the boy. He was nowhere near as unimpressive as she first thought in the stable. With a sword in his hand, he became even more manly. She dashed behind her mother to the veranda. Her mother slowed suddenly, and Yuki almost barged into her. Shizuko glared at her daughter. Yuki drifted by and didn't see the tweak of her mother's smile. The old sword maker Gotanda paid his respects to Shizuko and then turned to Yuki, waiting a step behind. "You are indeed a charm, beauty, and danger in the same bundle. But then one would expect nothing else from such two noble parents. It was an amazing display. Thank you." "Thank you." She bowed low to the old craftsman. She whipped up and touched his sleeve of the kimono. She spoke softly. "Would you give this to your son? I think I offended him in the stable, and he is a fine swordsman." From inside her sleeve, she removed a hand-woven charm. "Please ask him to attach this to his practice sword, as a reminder of the lesson we both have received today." "Certainly, Yuki. I hope my old bones will allow me to meet you again." "They are not so old as wise, and wisdom knows no age, sir." The old man chuckled at the young girl's clever, courtly repartee and made his way back toward his horse. He stopped beside Masao. "We are growing old, Masao. We need more honor and beauty at the court. You will be most welcome. A breath of much-needed fresh air." "Ah, I am more than happy here." "Ah, I can see that. Thank you for my son's lesson and the lovely afternoon." "Your gift embarrasses me, Gotanda-san." "Until we meet again, Sensei." The old man, with his retainer's help, climbed on his horse and was led away. The young boy bowed deeply to Masao and his wife, then made an extra effort to find Yuki. They bowed to each other, and Yuki smiled at the boy in such a way as to virtually knock him from his saddle. Masao glanced at the boy's eyes. The young boy was defeated again. Masao laughed quietly to himself and slapped the boy's horse. Beauty had such power. That's the end of chapter 1. It will be available on my YouTube channel in a few hours. Thanks for watching. If there's any questions, direct message me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be here again and we'll do chapter 2. Hope to do the first 4 chapters. Until then, thanks and take care. And take care.